La Bombard, 62 Westchester Street, the Land Bank at 17 and 19 North Liberty and 8 Wesco Place, and the Lily Pond Realty Trust at 27, 29, and 31 North Liberty Street. So is there anybody here to speak on any of those issues that cannot come back on the 25th of June?
That is the 25th of June, sir?
Yes.
Real quickly, too, also, if you're concerned about not coming back, the commission is happy, and we actually encourage written comments to come in. One of the reasons we encourage written comments is it gives the commissioners more time than just at the meeting to receive any questions or concerns that people have. Instead of trying to process it on the fly, they have a chance to kind of review and compare to the other information that's come in.
Plus, we have a hard copy for the record that way,
Yes.
which is really nice.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming.
Very sorry.
Okay,
That's how it
so
goes.
at least it was early in the meeting. You weren't here at 7 and we told you to go home. Okay, so now we'll go to the Town of Nantucket DPW at 188 Nantucket Road.
For the record, my name is Kara Buzanowski, DPW Director. Since I started here 2.5 years ago, we've been working with the Nantucket Biodiversity Initiative to try to address invasives as we find them in the public right-of-way. I've worked with Laurentide Environmental for the last 2 years and had them mostly deal with knotweed. I don't know if you remember the large stand of knotweed that we had on the Pulpus bike path, and that was addressed. In discussions this year for hiring Laurentide to address the invasives again, Bruce and I were talking about the Phragmites issue at First Bridge on Nantucket Road. And so he's filed the application for the Nantucket Road at Long Pond for the Phragmites to deal with those. And then the second application is for Coffin Park on Cliff Road to deal with the knotweed there, which is pretty pervasive.
I think,
Right now, we're technically just on the one at the
yeah,
I'm sorry.
landfill.
and we were
I'm sorry.
basically waiting for a file number, weren't we, or something
Correct.
on this?
Yes,
So,
and I actually spoke with Christine Odiaga today about this one. They're looking for a little bit more detail of a plan, and I know Laurentide is working on putting that together.
Yeah, we had a couple of locations where the Phragmites, one was in our yard, there's some at the landfill. So we were kind of wanting to leave it as broad as possible. The specific area that we're dealing with is at First Bridge, and then on the south side of Nantucket, there's a piece of Phragmites to the east of the culvert that needs to be addressed. So specifically, that's where he'll start addressing it, and it will be over a period of time. Unfortunately, it doesn't take first time through.
Can you put that on the GIS? I mean, maybe they're looking to see an extent of what is there now, so they get an idea, because I know it's just the circles that their problem is, it's just this
Correct.
area.
They're looking for more of a quantified. I know I actually spoke with Bruce today as well. He called me. He's working on putting that together. He's out of, I think he's out of the state right now.
He's in Vermont.
So, yeah, he's in Vermont. So as soon as he's working on it, it just needs to get in. So we'll still be waiting for a file number for this one. But I think if people have questions specific to the project, I mean, we can probably make some pretty decent progress
okay.
on the hearing.
And Bruce is very familiar with the techniques that we permit.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
This would be definitely something with, depending, considering it's right in a wetland.
Right in there, yeah.
Yeah, that
would
we'd want
definitely be
clip and drip.
yeah.
Yeah, the protocol that they've provided with that kind of has memorialized all that. I think really it's more of an area quantity issue now, and kind of a location specification.
Are they worried about it being too big of an area, or what do you mean? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not very big, I don't think, is it?
Pardon?
How many
it's pretty
square
big.
feet is it?
You know, we were talking about to defining the square footage, because it is pretty significant right there at the first bridge. But I just hesitated to do that, because if we could address a larger portion, I'd be happy to do that, to try to get the Phragmites out of there.
Yeah, I think if you had a GIS overlay map, I think it'd be easy to come back and get a minor mod if another area popped up. Maybe there's a way to add.
Yeah, I think the thing is, he's just been up in Vermont working and hasn't had a chance to get back yet. But
And I don't think we
We definitely
really care. I think we trust you, although but I can
that-
understand why.
that's the only thing that's holding up the
Yeah, it's
final
just
number.
meeting the state requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Kara, we don't have a file number on this, so we have to continue it anyway. So,
Questions from the audience?
oh, anything from the audience?
Do you have microphones? She can't hear because all you're talking to each other. Nobody
Yeah.
back there can-
Unfortunately, the microphones in this room don't broadcast over speakers.
They just go to the tape.
So we'll have to use our outside voices, I
Yep,
guess. to
we're
make sure everyone can hear.
discussing the land bank property there the town of Nantucket at Nantucket Road, at First Bridge, treating Phragmites, there, the top common reed. And I can speak really loud, I can be heard outdoors if
Use
need
your
be.
big voice.
Yeah. But I'll speak louder.
So if there's no other comments from the commission or the public, Kara, would you like to continue for 2 weeks?
Yes, could we continue until we get the file number, and then at that point close the hearing
I
for
think
an order?
We'll have that by the 25th.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
we
we'll just
should,
say
yeah.
till June 25th.
Okay, so unless I hear an objection, we'll continue to the 25th. Okay, thanks.
Do you want to do the same for Cliff, or just down to
Okay, now let's go to
Oh, we have a number.
the
We have a number.
We have a number, we can
DPW
close this one.
We can close this.
on
Oh, okay.
48 Cliff Road.
Oh, good, we've got the numbers.
This is a similar situation, only instead of Phragmites, we're dealing with knotweed. The knotweed infestation at Coffin Park is
Yeah.
significant.
Yes.
Significant. So I believe where we will start is at Cliff Road and then head down towards the wetlands area. It is going to be a multi-year process to try to address the extensive knotweed.
You've got some historic hybrid knotweed there, too. There's a couple of signs on the
These
paper.
are from earlier on, Jeff.
Do I have to keep it?
No, you don't have to keep it, no.
No.
No, it's all bad. It's just a new kind of badge. You've got a new kind of alien.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, any additional questions from the commission on this project? Anything from the public on the DPW project on 48 Cliff Road? Okay. So Jeff, do we have everything we need to close now?
We do for this one.
You ready to close, Kara?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close?
Move to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. See, sometimes it can be easy. Okay, Barrett, 31 Dukes Road.
Good evening, David Haynes for the applicant. This table's big.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, yeah.
There's one. What we have here is an existing house we'd like to do work on and renovation to and a small addition to, but on the second floor over the existing footprint. This house is a peninsula that juts out into a wetland, probably was filled years and years ago. It's on town sewer. It's got its own well and it's on town sewer. And I don't think he went out there, but it's all along right up to the edge of the wetland. There's a split rail fence around it, that they just rebuilt. And then there's an addition going on the second floor right here. The whole site, this is the only part that's outside of 50. The whole site is inside of basically between 50 and 0. And we are asking to put a new roof on it, redo the roof, some minor renovations to the house, to, new shingles, new garage doors, things like that, and then to raise the roof on the second floor up here to create 128 more square feet of living spaces by now adding. Pretty straightforward. We're going to put up a silt fence. Let me see it.
Where will you store stuff?
Well, it'll all come in from, it'll be in the front and then walk around to the back. There's no way to drive anywhere around here.
No increase in footprint or
No increase in
impervious area or
footprint.
anything?
We are asking for a waiver, obviously, because we're working on structures within 50 and within 25.
Okay.
I can show you the architecturals if you'd like to see them.
No, I think that's okay. Okay, anything else from the commission? Yeah, we'll go to the public now. Anything from the public on Barrett on Dukes Road?
Do I have to?
Yeah.
My name is Karen McClellan, and I am, my husband and I own the property.
I believe right here.
We own, where's the driveway?
It's right here. It's right here.
Okay, so we own 37 Dukes Road. The driveway that they use for in and out is actually on our property, and they have an easement to use it for such. In 2001, the septic, which had failed many times with the previous owners, they applied to put a septic line down our driveway.
A sewer line.
A sewer line. And my husband and I were opposed because the sewer line would be within 10 feet of our well, which is the only place on the property where we could have a well. So after many meetings, it ended up the commission allowed them to put this sewer line through the wetland 10 feet from our well. So when I got this notice about their putting an addition on this house, I just was concerned about the impact, just whether or not that sewer line was supposed to have been tested every year since it was put in 2001. It was not. And in 2004, seepage was noted in the wetland, and it was tested, and there were leaks. And there were many letters written to the owners, and they said, but they have not complied. They had not, the previous owners complied with having it tested. So I'm just concerned. I went to the Concom many times to ask about the pressure testing, and never really got any answers other than that it had failed at that time in 2004. So that's just my concern. They're adding more living space. There's already a rental one. The previous owner is the one, this part over the garage is a rental space, and it's a big house, and I just have concerns.
So that regular testing would have been an ongoing provision of the order of
Yes,
conditions?
so the original order of conditions from 2001 included a requirement for the pressure testing of that line annually. That did not occur, and then 2004, when the seepage was noticed, it was followed up in 2005 with an enforcement action from the commission to essentially replace and repair that line. That repair took place at some point, and then after some follow-up, and Ms. McClellan actually, we've spoken a few times, has come back. The only tests that we have records of in our office are from 2012 and 2013, when that passed.
Okay.
So I think going forward on this project, I think as long as we can have some kind of regular testing or assurance that it's functioning correctly, that could certainly be something that's, even in this project, dealing with the sewage and the building, to include that condition
I was thinking we should just have a condition in this
to
order,
provide
too.
that kind of testing to ensure the line itself literally runs through the resource area.
What is it constructed of? What's the material?
I think there's a sleeve on it.
It's a sleeve.
It was supposed to be a sleeve in
Sleeve, but it's a
2001.
spaghetti line, right, with the sleeve. You did send me that.
Yep, that's how it was permitted. I've never seen it, so I'm going to assume that's probably what it is. I know it passed its pressure test in 2012 and 2013, but I think that, given the proximity to wetlands, it'd be very similar to, not to compare and pick on, be very similar to the line at the field station that runs beneath that also requires that annual testing. I just think it's something that, going forward, it's probably more incumbent upon me to be sure that that testing is taken place and that stuff has been noticed and all those results provided to interested parties.
Yeah.
And that hasn't really happened to this point. So I think we're happy to do that. Everyone going forward, it's probably for the benefit of everyone to know that their sewer line is working correctly.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially the homeowner.
Yeah.
Well, and as the abutters, I guess my issue is that I went repeatedly to the Concom to ask, almost yearly, to ask about this testing, and I never got an answer. I mean, it was never done until, and then, I mean, after we noted the seepage, and so I just, I'm concerned, because like I say, our well is right there, 10 feet from that line, and so.
I mean, these are new owners.
Oh, I know, and they're a very, very nice young couple. I mean,
Yeah.
but there's a business being run out of the house. It's just a daycare business. I mean, it's just, there's a lot going on in this house built on a swamp. But I'm not, I don't want to, I'm not trying to make it difficult for them, but I
No,
have
we
to,
understand. No, this is something that it's good to know. It's good to hear these kind of
Right.
things. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds like we've been back on track, though, since it was replaced with it. Is that what we're hearing?
There was a little gap in time, but I feel pretty comfortable for the last couple of years. It probably was, to be perfectly honest, tested to deal with the transfer of the property
For the sale.
around there.
For them, yeah.
But I think with new owners and going forward, I think we can probably make that happen. It would just be nice to memorialize that again and kind of keep that going.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Anything else from the commission? Okay, Jeff, do we have everything we need to close the hearing?
Yes, we do.
You ready to close?
Move to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Okay, Steinberg on 18 East Tristram Ave.
Again, David Haynes for the applicant. This is an interesting situation. It was a East Tristram Ave, right at the corner where it bends around from East Tristram and goes to North Cliff Rock Road. And the area had been driven across and for years, and then they went ahead and paved it, but it wasn't in the layout of the road. and it is a minor spot of bother. And now this house is being built, and here it's outside of the buffer zone. It's outside of the buffer zone. The house is outside of the buffer zone. Portions of the road are in the buffer zone to a large BBW over here, and just barely in the buffer zone also to an isolated wetland that was flagged in the previous, I did several years ago. Not another property, but it's over in here. And what we're proposing on doing is to relocate the road back to the existing, to the legal layout of the road, pull it off of the property. And there is impacts, there is some flooding in the area due to poor drainage and poor construction of the road. We're going to put some more leaching catch basins in to try to alleviate that problem over in here. And we're going to relocate it in that area. We're not having any point source discharge. The closest, it's outside of 50 feet from the BBW. It's about 63 or 64 feet from the BBW. And there won't be any water running down to it, except for possibly a little bit of overland flow from the side slopes. The area is within a natural heritage mapped habitats, and we have filed with them and have had some contact, but haven't gotten a final response from
Okay.
yet.
Any questions from the commission?
It looks like you've got a driveway apron that connects, yeah, so that'll be easy to do. This
There is
connects right
also, there is a septic system over on the property across the street that's actually in the right-of-way. We're avoiding that. This driveway has to be pushed back a little bit, and coming down like this, and trying to keep everybody happy.
Keeping it asphalt, right? You're not switching to pervious, you're,
No, it's going to be paved. They're going to go grind up the old pavement and use it for the subgrade for the new pavement.
and you said you were putting a couple of new leach, kind of like not dry wells, but a couple of new swale.
Shown on,
Here's one.
there is a second plan that shows the relocated catch basins and with dry wells, with chambers, actually. There is some,
Infiltration trench, okay. So, you think that's going to alleviate the flooding a bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
that is the answer.
Yeah.
But we are going to need to have a continuance to wait for natural heritage.
Okay.
As you're looking at your iPad. You can see it better.
We've got the same stuff,
Yeah.
You can see them.
It's hard to point at everybody's iPad, though.
Yeah.
Anything from the public on Steinberg on East Tristram?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Jerry Johnston. I'm a Butter resident, been there for 16 years. I'm new at this. This is my first time, so I'm winging it. But I'm in the right place because the word conservation is in the mission, and this is the first one I've heard today truly about conservation. I was honestly surprised and frankly appalled that there would be a proposal to put a paved asphalt road into what says here is a protected habitat with rare species into a wetlands underneath the tallest remaining dunes we have on the island, Dionis Beach, and don't really know how to go about it. So the first comment was, can't imagine we would move a paved road into a wetlands to free up what looks to be a inconsequential amount of property that doesn't have any emergency or functional use to it other than having a little extra green space. Secondly, I believe the actual lot line in question here is erroneous. I was proposed by the town, gave me a survey of my property a couple years ago during the One Beach program, and it shows a significantly different northwest point of their property that's indicated here on this map. And secondly, if in fact this road was extended and proposed and put forth as planned, then clearly the road would be into my property, let alone not having proper setback. But frankly, that and the abutters to the north, where you mentioned the driveway, Mr. Horchow is now going to be faced with a paved road coming through the front of his yard, the way this is proposed, and he's been made aware of that. But those two conditions are frankly secondary to what I believe we're all here to do, which is to try not to increase flooding and put asphalt into protected habitat when in fact there's no real need for it. It seems to me to be a frivolous situation. So that's my point of view, and I will defer to some others.
Thank you. Jeff, we didn't go out and look at this site, but I don't see dunes delineated on the
The dunes are back here.
back away. So
Jeff can probably speak to
Overall,
us.
there's this isolated wetland, there's another wetland system, and there's, I don't even know what it is. It used to be Richards out there. And then there's the dunes that are down here. There is a road that goes down this way, and the dunes are probably eighth of a mile, several hundred yards, anyway.
we're way out of the buffer zone.
We're out of the buffer, and on the other side of a wetland from there is a whole wetland system. This wetland system keeps going down and goes like this over.
You're outside of the 50 with this new pavement.
Yes.
So outside of
And we
our
are,
regulations would allow a house there if we found that outside of the 50, we allow structures. So the closest wetland to where this is proposed on our maps is 50 feet away, or 50-plus feet away.
So,
So the red on the map is a mistake? Where the road is going
So,
over the red area?
I'll cover that.
Okay.
So the wetlands on the plan from our staff verification, the resource areas specifically, the BVWs and things are delineated, we feel correctly. The red that's shown on the plan is the line of mapped habitat. It's kind of
Okay.
orangish.
It's the natural
Yep,
heritage.
it's
Is
heritage.
the line for natural heritage. So
Yeah.
natural heritage has mapped that as priority habitat
line.
for a species that they, you have to request for them to disclose what species are. So this is why this application has to get sent to the state for their review. They'll provide us a letter that's commenting on any impacts that they feel are going to be taking place to that protected habitat. Provided to us, we are not able to take an action on this until we've received that. And if they have, like with any other application, conditions that are included that would be to prevent any sort of, significant damage to habitat that they feel significant, or the possibility of a take, they would provide that conditioning, or they would also, go down their own permitting path for permitting activities. So that's where it is. So I think we'll have to wait to see what they come back and say. And if they obviously come back and say that there's the species that are protected here will not be impacted, or there's not going to be a potential take, then obviously the discussion will be centered around that to some degree. Or if there are conditions, there are conditions. So
There's there's large portions of the island that are mapped as special habitat by natural heritage.
Right.
And so we defer to them. They review each plan and then say whether what the applicant is proposing will affect that habitat. And if so, then they can issue conditions. So we don't override them. We wait for their letter on that. But that's a large portion of the island that's
I understand.
mapped.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right, so-
just the Linda Loring group down along Eel Point Road have expressed a concern about asphalt not being a species in the wetland. So I just think it's, whatever, common sense to think it through. Now, I understand the legal aspects of it, and we'll have to see what they respond with, and we'll go from there. But it's this isn't just about a little water coming down a road or a plant. This is a major protected piece of the animal.
Okay.
absolutely. And then to some of the other questions that were raised, I'll try to tackle those too, because I'm sure that question's coming. As far as, I know we've talked about this before, lot lines and land disputes and those things, that's
Yes.
not for this forum.
Yeah, we
That's
don't-
that's
yeah.
for
We
the
have
land
to
court,
trust
that's
that
for
it's-
zoning, that's for those things. We have a plan that's stamped by a licensed surveyor that shows the lot lines as it is. We are solely, we only base decisions based upon our jurisdictional areas and performance standards.
I just want to make sure it's on the record that there's
Absolutely.
no question about the lot line.
I'd like to make a statement regarding the bounds that are shown on the plan. They are what's
Can you
locally called.
introduce yourself?
Dick Earl. I was a surveyor for the applicant. When we did the survey, we found what are locally referred to as E-bounds, marking the corners, were generally put in the 30s by Henry Everett, who claimed much land in Trotz Hills. The bounds are still there, clearly marked, as they were back in the day. And they mark the corners of the old Trotz Hills set off from 1821, and they always have. So they're shown on the plan, and they're easily found on the ground.
Okay.
And
Not to do,
that's about it.
but I'll just remind everyone to keep our comments centered to wetlands issues.
we are proposing to use a silt fence during construction to prevent runoff, and then soil stabilization measures as soon as possible to stabilize the side slopes.
Now, you're physically removing this from this other person's land, and then that's going to be filled with lawn, or?
It's going to be loamed and landscaped as appropriate.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the commission or the public?
Sure. I'm in a butter.
Oh,
And again, I'm new at this game, so.
would you introduce yourself, please?
Emile Poulon. I'm this guy. Just to the south. So, going back, the question was, and I'm just asking you folks, as you make this determination, or you make this, look at this proposed, what changed from the original road? Why was the original road allowed to go across this property?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
What's what I would characterize as a blunder.
Yeah. that's what it is.
By whom?
Whoever was directing the contractor doing the paving.
It should have been in the road layout in the first place. That's what the road layouts are for.
The gentleman who subdivided the property was required by local regulations to put in a paved road. And it just showed up one day. So the question is, why did that happen then?
That would be the planning
Did
board.
did this lot exist then?
We don't know, and that's not our,
I understand
not
that,
our
sir.
issue. So that, again, take that up with the planning board or,
Yeah, that would be, who would ask for, planning board often asks for
Yeah.
paved roads. We usually don't ask for that.
Whomever did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then just as the abutter, just in observing this over, I think we've been in there for about 12 years. The swamp that used to be on the other side here has shrunk up tremendously. And in fact, if you look at the road itself, it's caved back towards this property. And the question is, in that, are we discharging anything into what you guys would call the wetlands? I think was traditionally on the. These are just questions for you folks to consider. I know we're all concerned about the wetlands and the wildlife out there, and certainly been a diminishing of harrier hawks and other things that have happened. Just visually, and I can't document that specifically, but clearly it's changed what's happening out there. So I just wondered if those were considerations for, and you're saying if we don't really know what happened with the road, and I understand the lot line issue, I understand it probably better than most.
Is there any grading proposed here?
A minimal, it is,
If you look at the
topography
engineered
here
sheet,
looks- Yeah.
is
It's running as close as possible to matching the existing.
Right now, it looks like everything north and to the east is a little bit.
Where is the existing road? I don't see it. Is there one there? Excuse me.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Existing road.
It's the dark.
It's a dark.
It's a dark line.
But someone said the proposed road is going to be placed back where the original one was drawn. I don't see.
well, there wasn't a road in the original road layout, but these subdivisions have to put a road layout so that people don't, the subdivision or the town owns that property, so that it's not on somebody's land is where the road goes.
again,
There was a paper
something
road.
like that.
There was a paper road that went East Tristram extends.
Yeah.
again, I hate to do. We are drifted well
Way
into
out.
planning
Yeah.
board territory and
Okay,
land
but
court
I mean,
Is it
territory.
planning board, or that's, is this still in front of the planning board, or have you been through it?
This
But
is
you didn't
this is in
ask-
front of us for
We
The
didn't
bottom
ask.
line is, you didn't ask the question because of the.
right. We're kind of
Bureaucratic
bound.
restrictions you
We're
have.
bound by our jurisdictional area and
Yeah.
lot lines and those things are. I hate
But-
to say this.
but-
Our lot lines are wetland lines and buffer zones.
I would-
never
I would
asked for
make
paved
the-
roads.
the comment to the concerns about conservation was very early. This is impacting and will, and has impacted. And I think that's a matter of fact. So will this impact it more? And that is in fact your purview as Conservation Commission.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it may impact some habitat, but again, from the wetlands perspective, this appears to fit the regulations from our jurisdictional perspective.
Did you review the original because this was in front of the town.
What's up for review is what's in front of us now,
Yeah.
not what was in front of
No.
us at some other time.
Okay, so this was an earlier case.
Just
It was
for-
always
is that-
mentioned,
that's
was
a
mentioned
50-foot
earlier.
setback? What's the jurisdiction, I'm sorry, just,
Well, we have,
is it 50 or?
100 feet from the wetland.
yeah, we have jurisdiction up to 100 feet away, but there's 25 foot is no disturb, up to 50 is no structure, and then 50 to 100 is basically septic, is usually what we regulate within that zone, but there can be other things.
Okay.
But you're allowed a structure
So you're
from
using
50
the
to
blue
100.
wetland 100 setback as the line?
Yeah, after, out of 100, you don't have to come to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. To quickly answer Sarah's question, this,
I just asked about grading too. That's one of the things that we,
and so we're coming up about a little less than 2 feet in this area. We're right around 2 feet, right in the corner. We're raising it up, and there are proposed contours shown on here.
so you're actually directing water this way, not that way.
Yeah, and it's directed down towards the catch basin.
Okay, so you should infiltrate that water
Yeah.
then.
The two catch basins should actually help with trying to use my outdoor voice, with any road runoff. So, as often as we can, we do always ask for pervious roads. This is already an impervious road, but I just want to make it clear that, you know, when things are very close to wetlands, our whole board tends to be in favor of gravel roads and things like that, but this was already permitted as an impervious road.
If you may, I have one quick question, just for edification. Is this a public road or is this a private road?
It's private, huh?
And who has jurisdiction over that road?
Abutters,
Whoever holds interest within that road.
yeah.
Yeah, and that can
Easements.
vary.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we need Heritage to comment on this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so would you like to continue
We would
for
appreciate
2 weeks? Unless I hear an objection, we'll continue. Andy, did you have a question?
You know, he beat me to the question. I was wondering if there was any permitting history on it. There seems to be a lot of wetlands on that road, as you from aerials. But
So there was a lot of issues bringing it in.
well, it just makes me curious if it went through the process.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe we can look at it.
Can we ask about that? or-
Nothing against looking at it.
Absolutely. You
Go
guys
out there for
need
the
to
next site visit.
pull in information to make a decision. I can pull out
Just for-
what permit history we have for it.
So remind Jeff when we show up at the office next time.
So we'll look at it at site visits, and we'll also pull up the permitting history. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so unless I hear an objection from the commission, we'll continue this for 2 weeks. Okay.
The
25th.
25th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, we do take any written comments that people have. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like the commission to review prior to the next meeting, outside of your testimony, feel free to provide it up to the Friday prior to the meeting.
It might be worthwhile also, Mr. Chairman, to point out that on the back of our agenda is sort of a, kind of a Cliff Notes version of what our jurisdictions are and what things are legally germane here, so that we could focus things to what we have authority on.
Everyone be aware that they can talk to the planning board or HDC or anyone else. I don't know if this is going to be in front of everybody at this point, besides us.
Okay, so that takes us down to amended orders. Hanley, 22.
Oh, no.
What about Shepherd?
Oh, I missed
One more.
Shepherd. Oh, oh, there it is, sorry. Shepherd at 12 Midland Ave.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. On behalf of the applicant, Jill Shepherd. Property is located at 12 Midland Avenue, which is a dirt gravel road, which is located off of South Cambridge Street, just before the bridge. As you travel down South Cambridge Street, it's a right, and it's a piece of property that's via this gravel road, and it's located just to the north of Long Pond. Property was owned formerly by Dee Caton, who built the home with her husband back in the early 70s, have lived in it since then, and the property was recently sold to the Shepherds. We did come before the commission some months ago with a request for determination of applicability to confirm The wetland line that you see on the plan, that line was confirmed, and the line that you have on the plan is based on that original RDA approval. The proposal is to demolish or move the existing home that is on the property. There are photos within the file of the existing structure, and construct a new home on the site. The site does already contain a conforming septic system, which has passed an inspection as recently as 2-3 months ago. So we're going to maintain the existing system. We'll have to relocate the tanks. All that will be outside of the Concom jurisdiction, and we're simply going to construct a new single-family dwelling on the lot. There is some proposed work outside the 100, the driveway, and potentially a future garage, but the focus of the application before you tonight is the reconstruction of the existing single-family home. The site will be in compliance, or the elevations of the site will be in compliance with the newly adopted flood maps, which took effect on June 9th. And other than that, it's simply no waivers are required. All the work is outside, no work within the 25, and the structure is completely outside the 50-foot no-build zone. For the most part, we are going to do a little bit more clearing that's out there right now between the 50 and the 100, but other than that, we're basically taking the existing home that's there and replacing it with a new structure. And we do have been issued our DEP number, and we are outside of any National Heritage mapping.
Any questions? Okay, anything from the public on Shepherd? Okay, seeing not. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, sir.
Move to close?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. Okay, now we go to amended orders. Hanley, 22 Pilgrim Road.
Good afternoon, Dan Malloy for the applicant, Family Development. Here before you this afternoon for an amendment to an existing order of conditions. Site was issued an order of conditions approximately a year ago, 2013. The previous order allowed development outside the 50 as shown here. What's happened is the limit of work line, some of the work on the site has started in terms of clearing, moving trees around. What was proposed before is an extensive driveway coming through the property to serve other property behind it on West Warren. That has since been closed off and relocated. So what we're proposing now is to put building, add a second dwelling, a pool, and a garage in place of where driveway was previously. The limit of work line that's shown on here now is very similar as what was approved before, right? Circular right along the top of the bank in the depression right now. What's already happened, you can see all these trees. Those have all been placed, they've all been pulled from where they were going to be ultimately cut down. So the limit of work plan is actually already done in terms of delineation on the property. The only buffer zone change in terms of impacts is with the elimination of the driveway that was going to go through the property. The driveway up the Pilgrim Road has gotten a little bit wider right up the Pilgrim Road for parking space. That's the only essentially buffer zone change from the previous limit of work. There are no waivers requested. There was none approved previously, none requested now.
The driveway is outside of the 25?
No work in 25. It's just a little bit of, there's clearing in 25 to 50, but parking right there, and that's it.
Okay. And that's going to be pervious parking?
Pervious driveway. In that case, in location, be a little bit beneficial to get rid of some of the knotweed as well.
So you're going to be doing herbicide on the knotweed, or?
Well, I'm just talking about the stuff that'll be cleared out.
Oh, you're just going to clear it, okay.
They're not looking to go into the well at this point, actually, altogether.
This
Okay.
doesn't fall under our 50% rule, does it?
We've got it laid out so that we don't have to over 50%.
It is compliant as proposed.
Okay, simple enough.
Okay, any other questions from the commission?
I'm just curious, I mean, is this like a privet around the edge? Along the edge of the drop-off into the wetland?
Yeah, there's a privet proposed there. Some of that's not going to happen. What happened was the privet was proposed and the trees were relocated as we were submitting this plan.
Yeah, I see the plus of sort of having something like that, because you got all these patios. I mean, the driveway and stuff, and that water sheeting in the wintertime off right down into the wetland. But having a little berm or something to
If
stop
you
it.
see right now, where they moved all these trees, they put earth and tree wells around them all, so they're all pretty elevated as it is.
So there's a little bit of a wall.
There's a little bit of almost a natural now with the
Good.
trees.
Hmm.
We can berm it up along that side. and create
It might
that
just not
if
be
you
a
want. It's
bad
not
idea.
problem.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, that's not an issue on our end to do that. Some of that's going to happen to an extent with the landscape. You can pick it up 6 inches or a foot just on the edge. It's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a steep topography into that
It's really
wetland.
a drop
Anything you
there.
can do to encourage things not to go that way,
Yeah,
except
that's
infiltrate it, is good.
The embankment now is fully stabilized as well, so there's no,
Heavily vegetated.
it's heavily vegetated with everything at this point. There's no proposal at all for it all.
Okay. Anything else from the commission? Anything from the public on Hanley at 22 Pilgrim Road? Okay, Jeff, do you have a recommendation?
Recommend this as a pretty good amended order of conditions.
So,
I'll put it, it's too significant of a change for my modification, so an amendment would be.
okay, so,
Recommend issuing an amended order of conditions.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. So we go to the public meeting, request for determination, 2013 Freedom Trust.
This might be one I have to. Am I better on this one?
The NCF property is, so yes, yes.
The fuel station is. I might just listen in, but I will sit over here.
Sarah, what's a fulling mill?
The following mill is for carting coal, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
For the applicant, Jeff
Sounds
Smile,
good.
Rockwell Associates. I'm in front of you tonight with a request for determination of applicability to confirm two resource area boundaries for bordering vegetated wetlands located to the east and west of the subject parcel, as well as for determination that work proposed within the buffer zone will not have an adverse effect or require the filing of a notice of intent. In front of you, shown on both sides, and the plans aren't colored, but are the delineated bordering vegetated wetland boundaries with the associated 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zones. And then the work that's proposed on the west side of the property is to put in a new driveway and abandon and replant this portion of the driveway. So if I could, this portion would be abandoned, and this would be the new driveway, which essentially increases the separation distance from the vegetated wetland on the opposite side of Fulling Mill Road, which is a sand dirt track. On the opposite side, on the east side of the property, the proposed work, the 100-foot buffer zone is here and here, so the center of the property is outside of the jurisdiction. And the work on the east side, we show a proposed silt fence, which we've held at 37.5 feet from the wetlands to be sure that we maintain at least a 50% undisturbed area within the 25 to 50-foot buffer zone. And then we're proposing some additional lawn area, a fire pit, and a wildflower meadow. And additionally, there's a porch proposed onto the existing house, so located about 90 feet away from the resource area. There's no waivers requested from the or needed from the regulations, and with that, we would feel that this would be appropriate as an RDA and be happy to try to address questions or concerns that you may have.
Do we have a staff recommendation on this?
Certainly. I mean, we reviewed the wetland lines and agree with the wetland lines, and that an RDA is appropriate for a project.
So that would be a negative,
That would be a +2.
+2, confirming the line.
The boundaries, and then a negative 3 on the other one. Sorry.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Do I have a second?
I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Mary Ann Hanley. My client's Fisher Properties LLC owns the property next door, and we have some concerns, not about the wetland line. We've checked with our wetland people, and we feel that's certainly been accurately depicted. However, we do think that the scope of the work proposed is a little excessive for an RDA. There's a significant amount of work being done in the buffer zones. It's true that the entire house is pretty much outside of your jurisdiction, but the driveway and the work in the backyard is within your jurisdiction. When the original house was built, notices of intent were filed. There were significant drainage analyses provided for the driveway location. As a matter of fact, 4 different driveways were considered. This one was decided upon. We don't have any information based on this RDA that helps us to figure out what the drainage configuration will be here. If you note that the entryway to the new driveway that's proposed, the grading changes are more acute than they are over on the opposite side of the road, which would, in my opinion, would certainly would cause more water and more runoff into the wetland or into the sand road. There's also been a substantial amount of mowing right here in this area, so it's very flat, and there's not much there to catch things. There's no information on the driveway grading. There's no information on what type of materials would be used or how this area might be replanted. I guess from the looks of it, the driveway would start here, go this way, and then also go that way. To the rear of the property, where they propose changing the lawn edge and putting the fire pit in, my clients have significant concerns about that. Again, there's no information provided as to how things would be graded, how deep the excavation would be. I mean, there's a fire pit that's about, depending on how you measure, it's 20 feet across and it could be 30 feet wide. There's stairs down to it. I don't know if it's going to be made out of pervious or impervious material. We don't know what type of fuel would be provided. Would it be wood? Would it be propane? Would a propane line be running out to it? Would there be a propane tank underneath it? There's a couple of other issues that I have looked at former filings on this project, and when the original house was built, there was an ongoing condition that the limit of mowing was supposed to be established and fence posts were supposed to be maintained. That does not show on this plan, and I do not believe, my client said on physical inspection they don't see that those fence posts are there. So it's a little bit difficult for us to ascertain whether or not the level of mowing is the same, and if in fact, if you allow this under an RDA, would that actually conflict with an existing ongoing order? A certificate of compliance did issue, but it is an ongoing order. One of the other concerns we have is that also does not show on this plan, there's a 110-foot long trench that was installed over here after the house and the cottage were built. Apparently there was a problem with ponding adjacent to the cottage. Again, I don't have the information from this RDA that would tell us what the impact of this new structure, of the mowing, the grading, whatever they're going to do over here would have on that, and whether or not that ponding would return as a problem. And finally, one of the things that I would point out, and one of the things that's very important to my clients, is that there is an osprey nest immediately adjacent to their property. It's approximately here. I can't give you a distance, but I would say probably between 100 and 150 feet. And they are very concerned that the activity and the frequency of use associated with a fire pit could be harmful, could cause the osprey to leave the nest. We think there are a couple of eggs in there, and we're hoping to see some chicks fairly soon. They come back every year. We've been working with staff at Mariah Mitchell for a few years, and they would simply be heartbroken if, in fact, the activities proposed around the fire pit area resulted in an abandonment of the nest or any endangerment to the chicks. Finally, the fire pit is certainly going to be visible from the water, from the neighboring properties, and it's also visible from Pulpus Road.
No, that's an HDC issue.
I understand that, but it's a scenic wetland view issue as well. When you're driving off Pulpus Road, coming down the road, I think most of the people in this room will agree with me that the view of Folger Marsh is beautiful, and there shouldn't be anything allowed to be put there that would detract from that view. I feel that if, in fact, this was filed as a notice of intent, the commission would have the ability to look at some of these issues a little bit more closely. They'd be able to review the existing permit history to make sure that there are no conflicts between what's proposed and what has been previously been allowed. And it would just reassure all of us to make sure that this is done, that the work is done the right way. It's possible that the fire pit could be moved to a different location, or it wouldn't be as noticeable, it wouldn't be as disruptive to the local wildlife.
To the wildlife.
Exactly.
So how far is this fire pit going to be from the Osprey pole?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, we can't go onto their property to measure.
Likewise.
The
About
The
where is it?
Osprey pole is, I don't know if you have the aerial, the town aerial. You can see it on that.
Can you kind of put your finger on it on the map, and then we can get at least a little bit of an estimate here?
I would think it's probably about here.
Okay, and then,
It lines up fairly easily with the corner of my client's house.
so what's
Corner
the
that we
scale
can see.
there?
This is a 30 scale, I believe.
So it's,
It's 20 scale plan.
This is a 20. Okay, I'm sorry, the one I was
so it's
looking at
probably
this
a
morning was
couple
30.
hundred feet, huh?
Mr. Chairman, can I respond? to
Yeah.
some- I think we should, I would like to just try to run through Ms. Hadley's comments, because let's go back to where she started, which is on the west side of the property. In terms of the driveway, I think it's a pretty clear improvement to protection of the interests. When you look that the existing driveway currently discharges at 25 feet away from the resource area, and we're going to greater than 50 feet. In terms of the comments with respect to the grade, the current driveway is down at elevation 15 where it meets the road. We're up down at elevation 12. We're 3 feet higher over here. The proposal would be to maintain the existing grades, which aren't all that different from right in here. So there's really, I don't see any detrimental or adverse impact as a result of the change in driveway. In terms of replanting, again, within the buffer zone, we're greater than 25 feet away from the resource area on the opposite side of a road. So this is Fulling Mill Road here, which is traveled, regularly to serve the other houses and the harbor access. So I don't know if you want me, but we've almost got, it sounds like, two separate sets of issues to address here, one on the east and one on the west side of the property. I don't know if the commission has additional concerns that you want to hear about on this side, but it seems very clear cut to me that you're going to increase your separation distance, increase the vertical point from which the driveway meets into the road on the opposite side of a road. So I don't see in this area how we really have any issue that would be different through the filing of a notice of intent. And in terms of the driveway material, the driveway here is listed as existing shell. The proposed is also to be shell. So there's the answer, if you will, to that piece of it. I guess I would take, I could either go on, or if there's any questions or discussion you have on that piece of it. On the other side, again, we're increasing what's currently the mode limit of work from 25 out to 37.5 feet. So in terms of protecting the interests of the vegetated wetland, you're getting an increased buffer zone from what you currently have here. In terms of the fire pit, again, it's great, it's in an area that would be allowed. It's greater than 50 feet away from the resource area. And with that, you know, we don't necessarily see where there would be an adverse impact based upon.
This is a rough week this week. We've got neighborhood welcome wagon, function as a neighborhood welcome wagon committee, and we're getting neighborhood disputes in front of us couched in wetland protection terms.
In terms of the drainage, if I may, the drainage trench it's a subsurface trench there that's been functioning for a decade, I'd say. I don't see where the installation of a wildflower meadow around this small feature is going to have any impact. Again, when we tie this back to the protected interests in a resource area that's greater than 50 feet away, and to know that you have additional infiltration there, I'm not sure what would come out of the difference of why a notice of intent would be required. And the osprey, issue, I don't, again, that's not on the property. We don't know where, exactly where that is. Likewise, I can't go on their property to locate that. And wetland scenic views, the views are this way. So if you're talking about from the road and from the public area, so again, I don't see how the fire pit is not going to stop somebody. It's basically, not going to be more than a couple feet above grade. How that then is therefore going to sort of in some way impede or someone can't see the wetland scenic views because of this feature in somebody's backyard.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Stephen Cohen, I represent the abutter on the other side, the Galvins, 11 and 13 Fulling Mill Road. And the Galvins don't have any objection to the development of this lot, but believe that it should be done in full compliance with your regulations. And I think that there's enough information on here to suggest that you really don't have enough information. I think Ms. Hanley covered it, that, really especially the fire pit, we don't know what the material is, we don't know how high it is, we don't know what the features are, we don't know, are there walls? These look like walls to me, I don't know how tall that is. They should get what they should get under your regs, but it looks like it's a little heavy for just an RDA.
Jeff, what do you think?
RDAs and notices are kind of a discretionary. You still have the ability to condition requests for determination. We don't do it very often, but you do have that ability to do that. I think as far as the scope of work that goes forward, let me actually pull it out. I just want to read the language correctly. When we look at the requirements for the request here. Where did I put it?
When you're doing that, can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I'm just asking as a citizen, not as a commission member. I'm just trying to understand where the fire pit is. What is this stippling?
Wildflower meadow.
So that's what's currently there now?
Lawn.
So this is lawn.
This is the edge of lawn here, and then this is currently some kind of occasionally mowed area.
Sir.
I know. Because he's saying the edge of lawn. I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yeah, there's two areas that are
This is the house.
maintained.
So this is all like bayberry or?
Right, it's it's native vegetation, I would say, that's maintained on a
But it's
not the same way as the lawn, but it is maintained.
Native vegetation, you're planning to put in wildflower seed that's Cape Cod mix, which is not all native.
It's not necessarily Cape Cod mix, no. That would be for the lawn planting, but
Was
the
that a-
wildflower would be a wildflower seed mix.
Okay. So I was just trying to, I couldn't tell what was there.
Can I
So
see?
that's the location where.
Just out of curiosity, whereabouts is this osprey hole?
Is that it right there?
These are the G poles in there?
Looks like that's it.
That's it right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
You can see the shadow of it.
Yeah,
Right, so you're talking, you know, probably more like 400.
No, it's not 400. It's definitely not.
All right, to answer your question, so
Can we have one conversation going on, please, Mr. Chairman?
But hundreds of feet, I think we could agree on.
I'm going to answer the question that you asked. So the way it reads in the negative determination is the work described in the request is within the buffer zone as defined in the regulations, but will not alter an area subject to protection under the Act. Therefore, the said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent subject to whatever conditions you guys wish to put on. That's typically what we look at for buffer zone work under a request for determination.
Not alter the area, so what does that mean?
Jeff, I've always thought that an RDA was for land where a portion of the lot is within jurisdiction, but you are planning to do work on the non-jurisdictional portion of the lot. Is that?
No, because if you're doing work on the non-jurisdictional portion of the lot, you wouldn't require
Any
filing at all. Is you can do work under an RDA within the buffer zone. Just when you're looking at it in this case, the area that's there, and it's important to note in there that the area that they're referring to is the capital A area. They're referring to, you're not going to be altering the area, the resource area by the project for the work in the buffer zone.
I just don't know that you have the information to make that decision.
I think that you very clearly do, Mr. Chairman. It's right here on the plan, exactly horizontally where the features are, where the boundaries are, what the distances are from the boundaries. And the past practice of the commission has typically been that if that an RDA is appropriate for non-waiver projects. And that's been the standard that that past practice has dictated.
I would say this seems to me to be consistent to the types of projects we've allowed to go forward under an RDA, since it's, basically outside the buffers and relatively minor features.
I agree.
Well, the motion is there, Mr. Chairman. It's still there.
Did you second it, Andy?
I will second it.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries with Commissioners Opie and Carberg recused. Thanks, everybody. Okay, minor mods.
It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
It's June, people coming back, it's all little squabbles.
I know.
Makes you furious.
Okay, let's get back to order here. 28 Willard Street condominiums.
Good afternoon. For the record, Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. There's an active order of petitions for this property. There are two buildings on one property, number 26 and 28. 26 was before you a few years ago. That's all closed out. So we're only here for 28. You actually have a certificate of compliance pending for 28. That's been pending for a few months now. Recently, they received approval from the planning board to put a second driveway on the one lot. So rather than go through the certificate of compliance, we're asking to modify and hold off on that certificate of compliance, modify the original order to construct a driveway with a cobblestone apron and 2 shell strips. We did submit a plan for the certificate of compliance that showed that everything was constructed according to the order conditions and that grades hadn't changed, which was part of that order, and all the other work was done according to that plan. So we're asking for a minor modification to install the driveway shown on the plan.
And this is just land subject to?
It's land subject to coastal stone flowage.
No wetlands?
No other wetlands.
Wasn't there a great issue, though, that's been resolved?
That was on number 26.
On number 26, and that has been, because we had issues with that. That is
correct. That one is resolved. That's the one where they installed the drains.
The rear drain in the back.
And we lowered the driveway.
Yes.
Right.
I will also say, in our original discussion, I went back and looked that this area, this is why we brought it forward as a minor modification, was essentially regarded to and on site plans as the parking area. They're just now, instead of having a grass parking area, making some improvements to make it, I guess, more parkable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's still kind of wet there. So
Okay. Any other questions? Or do I have a, Jeff, would you have a recommendation?
I recommend that this can be approved as a minor modification.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Desert Island LLC, 13 Delaney Road.
For the applicant, Art Gasparo, Blackman Associates. I'm in front of you tonight requesting a minor modification for the project. This was located up on the corner of Cliff Road and Delaney Road. You may recall that this was the project that had the 4 applications for the one big property, and that it had the existing house that was formerly known as 64 Cliff Road. We did a subdivision. This is one of those 4. And this has to do with the house that was there. So from a design perspective for the new owners, this has been the most difficult in terms of finalizing their design. And so we're in front of you tonight. They have essentially taken the old house and worked with their architect to come up with what they want to have as a final design. And the modifications, one of which is a set of proposed stone steps right here on the house, which they previously didn't have plans for a door there, so they have doors that have worked into their architectural design, which then require the set of stairs. And those stairs are going out. It's not shown on this plan, but on the approved landscape plan, there was approved bluestone patio there. So the stairs are on top of what was approved as a bluestone patio. The other portion of the modification is to add a porch to infill this corner in here, and it is within the 50-foot buffer zone. So there was a waiver originally granted to the project for work within the 50, but this is an additional 75 square feet or so of area within the 50-foot buffer zone, within what's currently lawn area, and had been lawn area since prior to the effective date of the regulations. But that's what's proposed right in here. So they're proposing to change what was approved as stairs right here to living space, and then to move the porch and put the porch right in here. And that is the extent of the proposed modification.
Any questions? I remembered us wrestling with this application for a long time.
It looks like these 2 components are going right where the bluestone is, but there wasn't, you said there was one bit of living space that was just being replaced.
This 45 square feet right here, I labeled. I had a feeling that the commission would want to know areas. So for each of the proposed features, I've listed the area, and I've labeled as approved what had been previously approved. So that there was a set of stairs there, and they want to make that enclosed space now, and then make this the porch right next to it. And if I may, I just, as looking at it, I want to just correct the one thing I said, which I do show the approved bluestone patio. So these features are above the bluestone patio, but the stairs are not. And I can point that out to you right there. I flip-flopped what I was saying. The proposed porch is over what was approved as bluestone patio, but these stairs are approved over lawn, what was existing and approved.
And we issued waivers previously.
There were waivers issued, right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Not that I normally do. Those proposed steps are those overlapping on the area that was existing, that was kind of that mix of asphalt and gravel?
That's correct. It's right on sort of the edge of what was that old asphalty driveway. And
that is shown on this plan. It's right here in the stippled, so it's sort of, I guess it would be just to the upland side of that feature. And again, that asphalt driveway is all being removed. That was a big part of the original application. And we do have the subsurface drainage facilities that were approved as part of the original application.
I might add it to my question. This isn't a question, but before you ask, I know we talked about this a bit for filings. All of the work that is being proposed is within the original scope of what was permitted and within the original waivers that were issued. So that's why this is in front of you as essentially as a plan change. You know, we always call it minor modifications, but they're really kind of one and the same. Because it just would shift the record plan from the previous plan to this plan.
Okay. Any other questions? So, Jeff, do you have a recommendation?
I would recommend that this falls within the original scope of work and qualifies as a minor modification.
Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Yes. Bam, could you slide me that pledge? Andy? Thank you.
Okay, certificates of compliance. Bartholomew at 52 Tennessee Ave.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I know everyone has it in front of them, so I'll spare everyone the getting it out. This was for the construction and upgrade of a pre-existing septic system. You can see in your packet there that the septic system was built in compliance with the original permit, and the elevations are correct to the original permit. And we didn't really have any conditions to be ongoing. It's not a system that required any ongoing monitoring or operation and maintenance agreements, so I would recommend that this could get issued.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, 26 and 28 Willard Street condominiums.
The reason this one's on there and was it was filed for quite some time ago by the attorney for the locus, and since then the driveway thing came up, but we are carrying it forward until we had received the plan. We have, but we're carrying it forward again so they can construct their parking area. But since we had it and that was kind of the trigger for it, I wanted to put it on just to kind of update everyone. So when the driveway's done,
then we'll come back to it.
we'll come back, but that's kind of where we are.
Okay. Sea Terrier Farm, Pippin's Way.
All right. This one is going to require probably a lot of signatures, but I'll explain what's going on here. So the requests that's in front of us are for partial certificates of compliance as they relate to lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. And if you guys look at your plans, that's in your packet, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 are primarily outside of the 100-foot buffer zone first and foremost, but this order solely deals with the installation of the roadway and deals with the installation of the drainage features that go with the roadway. None of the work for the roadway or the drainage features are on those lots that I listed. There's some that's on lot 7, so that's the reason why that's not included in this request. But as they're transferring out these individual lots, they have an open order that they don't have control over, or there's not work being done on their lot. So what they're asking for is the certificate of compliance for each individual lot that no work is being done on, but to keep the primary order open to do the work within lot 7 within the road layout. So
Okay.
essentially what I'm recommending is the issuing of the partial certificate of compliance to release lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 from that order of conditions, but then that the main order stays open for the work to be done within the road layout and on lot 7.
Okay, do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously.
All right, the bad news for you guys is since they all get recorded separately, you get to sign 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9
Okay.
separately.
Wow.
So just
Let's give
start
us
there.
a second to do that before we...
Yep. Because they'll get recorded separately, and the registry flips out if it's all one, so. Get so excited for signing so many.
We run out of ink here.
Bookworks, there you go. I had more as a kid and I loved it.
That's why. There's some nostalgia there.
Unfortunately, I can't sign and listen at the same time.
That's all right.
I'm not very good at it either.
I'm making good time tonight, so.
Oops, one more.
There we are.
The hard part's done.
Okay. 7 on there, so.
Very quiet crowds.
In our packets, I only see one more.
Yep, we had a glitchy thing.
Has
Well,
a-
I'll explain. The reason why the last one's not in there, I'll explain because it's just a reissue.
That
of
looks
the
like
other
just the last two, North Star or...
one. North Star, I had scanned it and it didn't.
And 18 still not? So both of
18
them.
still back is just a reissue.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that one. But I have 4 North Star with me.
Okay. Could probably just start passing those around. I didn't think about that.
Not in any particular order.
Yeah,
No.
I thought about that, but I thought it was too
No, these ones are
confusing.
not because I figured.
I don't think
when
it's
we-
any faster.
When we got signing, that these ones would get shuffled around, so.
Yeah.
They're attached to their specific lots. It's all the same file number, so it's all the same until I put the front page on it. And it's the same signers for all, so.
So the next meeting, I plan to be here, but I might have to call in.
That's fine. We have the technology to do so.
I'll be on my island, I just might be sort of,
It happens to us all.
read the minutes, so. I read quite a few.
Let's give us a cut out too.
There's a couple of questions in there that I couldn't answer.
It's down there on my side. I know. All right.
Ready to go? Okay. So we're down to Flannery at 62 Onoma Way.
Sure. So this one was for the as-built that you see there. Right, so this was for the construction of the cottage, garage, and shed, and then the installation of the septic tanks. So you can see the cottage, the garage, and the shed on the as-built. They're built in the locations that were permitted. The distance to and from the wetland area is correct. And upon our inspection, I would say that the site is in substantial compliance with no necessary ongoing conditions.
Okay, move to issue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You recused, Jen? That motion carries with Commissioner Carberg recused. Okay, North Star Land Company.
All right, North Star Land Company, this was for some site development as well. I apologize for just not making it in the package. Copy machine just stuck it together and I missed it when I went through it the second time. It was for the kind of the site development, and again, the setbacks from all of the structures are correct to the, to propose. Some of the things were existing as kind of a remodel and a few other things, but I would say that the site for this one as well is in substantial compliance.
Do I have a motion to issue?
Move to issue.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, Goodall, reissue, 18 Still Dock.
Correct. So this one is one that the commission originally issued back in, when was we doing this? Back in 2009. Amazingly, Ernie, Andy, and Sarah were on the commission then as well. Ernie didn't sign it, he must have been gone, but the other ones did.
Way back when.
They just have lost the original and need to put it on record. So they've asked it for it to be reissued. It was issued prior with a complete certification with no ongoing conditions. We did re-inspect the site, and the site still is in compliance with its original permit, and I would recommend that this one could be reissued.
Okay, so moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay. So orders of conditions. So a bunch of these are not ready to go, huh?
I only did one. I'll pass it out in advance. I did the one for
Cliff Road or
Shepherd.
Shepherd?
I never know how they're all going to go, so just want to take them and pass around. Again, it's
Thank you. Do we need to talk about the ones we closed?
yeah, we can just rip this one out and be done with it. Then you guys will be done signing for the night. So all of your hand cramps can begin to recover.
Well,
Seems straightforward to me.
yeah, pretty straightforward, huh? No waivers, no heritage review,
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward packet, so.
no ongoing
No
conditions.
neighbors?
No neighbors.
Well said.
Anybody have any changes? If not, I'd say move to issue as drafted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we will close a whole lot.
Well, if you don't mind, I was just going to ask, the first two for the invasive species projects for the DPW, we did close the one at 48 Cliff
Oh,
Road.
that's right.
I was just going to draft kind of our standard invasive orders for both ones.
I think that sounds good, yeah.
We did also close 31 Dukes Road, the Barrett, for the second-story addition, a little bit of a shingles remodel.
Yeah, I
And then
think
it
you
sounds
should-
like there's the ongoing sewer issue that we wanted to address in there as well, in that order, for the continued regular notice and testing for that. We can actually chase that down. I think that's important for that one. So, since you stated, this is the portion where they're going to, yep, they're going to deliberate. They've essentially given me the instructions to draft a permit for, I don't want to jump the gun, a positive permit to permit the infilling of the second floor, but what they're asking is that conditions be included that continually memorialize the need for annual testing of that sewer line, and that notice go out, and then the results of that testing go out to the interested parties as well. So that would be included in their permit going forward, and they'd be obligated to maintain those conditions, or they'd be in violation of that permit. So at the next meeting on the 25th, if the order is suitable to the commission, they would issue out that order, and then those conditions become valid. So we'll draft those conditions, and if you'd like, you can even review those at the meeting. But you can certainly at the meeting get a copy of what that would look like, or if you are that interested, we can talk about it again too.
Okay, thank you. And I just hope I'm not one of the pesky neighbors that held you up.
No.
We appreciate having,
Yeah,
actually,
it's
with
good to have comments.
it's much better than 2 years from now from the butters walking up to us and going, I didn't know this. Yeah, so no, it's, you were helpful. This is the kind of stuff we want to know about.
And then we didn't close anything else. So
Okay.
I think that's it.
Next meeting is going to be a fun one, I can tell.
They're all fun.
Oh, they are. I
Every
just-
single one.
Yeah.
Look forward to it for all weekend.
I count down the days.
Okay, so that's the orders of condition. Okay, enforcement actions.
I don't have a lot to report back on at the moment. We've been kind of sidetracked in the last week and a half with other things. We still have our ongoing ones. I know that as far as the Hammock Pond wetland issue goes, I know they've offered out that work to a specific individual. I don't want to disclose who that is until they agree to do it with the funding that's there. But I know that's taken place, because I would like to get that on the road and going. I just need to confirm whether or not that job has been accepted. I guess I'll put it that way. And I don't want to have someone come back and say they didn't take it and then have to report to who that is and have to deal with that. So as soon as I know where that one is, that's there. Other enforcement actions that we have kind of outstanding. The Wall Street, Willard Street property that had the little retaining walls that were constructed, those have finally been removed. Working with that homeowner to bring one other small issue into compliance on that site, and that will hopefully close out. They'll hopefully bring back an as-built plan that we can all kind of sign off on and agree upon. But that one's finally moving forward. It took a long time. Other than that, I don't really have any.
Do you remember that enforcement order we had for revegetating way over by, what is it, Pocomo, or no, it's even further, where they had all the lawn furniture right by the beach and the extra area, the stairs, and they had cleared a bunch of area they weren't supposed to clear. This is
Squam?
Squam, yeah.
Out in Squam. I haven't spoken with.
A long time ago, yeah.
Well, it's just in the last year. I haven't spoken with Mr. Foley. I do have the occasion that we'll be out there later this week. Either I will.
Didn't we have to also go
just
back
about-
to natural heritage on that too?
Yes, they were supposed to, because they had potentially some significant populations at St. Andrew's Cross, and there was some dispute on how much St. Andrew's
Remember
Cross
that one? It was
had
kind of
come
a
back
big one,
into
yeah.
that area. I need to follow up with their botanist to figure out how much was there or where they are at in that process. But I won't have that too
Is
much.
there an easy way to set up a spreadsheet so that every 6 months we recheck in on big ones?
Yes, we're actually
To make it
working-
easy for you. I just-
We're
for
actually
some
working
reason
on that, and I'll get to the other part of my administrator's report. But
Okay.
that's something that, for those who don't know, around the 1st of July, we're actually going to have a part-time office person.
Wow.
Outstanding. And one of their primary tasks is going to be starting with kind of starting a database for monitoring and reporting conditions and enforcement actions. We're going to start with the enforcement actions.
Oh, good.
Good.
To kind of keep those on just a running tally for where those are. So there's a few that are outstanding and a few that are not, and a few that have been closed out. But there's also been over time, and Dukes Road was a great example of an ongoing condition and a requirement that had kind of fallen through the cracks, that there's probably a fair number of those around, just from
I bet, yes.
dirt leaving and my coming in, or stuff that just hasn't been done, but a way for us to start really chasing those down and start to really crack the whip on that. So I have something else for the administration report that kind of covers that.
No,
Okay.
it just occurred to me when I was thinking about some of the bigger ones that we were.
So that was one, and just trying to keep our thumb on the Hummock Pond Road wetland, keep that going.
But wasn't there one over on Tuckernuck of,
The cleanup that's there, the cleanup that was going on there is now down to all of the metal and things have been removed from the site. There's still a few trash bags and some wood, but all of the really, really nasty stuff is gone. And they're continuing, I actually spoke with their attorney last week about that project, and they're continuing to do it. It's just removing large quantities of trash and debris from Tuckernuck can be a little difficult.
Oh, Bam will bring it over.
yeah,
So,
What's that?
I was joking. I said, "Oh, Bam can bring it back over."
That's our bag a visit.
That's what happens
this is the magic of Tuckernuck.
did we do one on Penske? Didn't he put in a,
Yeah, didn't we have an inch?
We've been following up on that with the posts and the fence. They're trying to quantify how much fence went in and do some of that survey work to remove it. The tubes and some of the things that are there are compliant. It's just the fence at the bottom. And we're trying to figure out, or they're trying to put together the best way to deal with that without a catastrophic failure or something that's there. So I told them to prepare something to quantify that and present how they're going to fix it. So hopefully they'll be in shortly. But
okay.
they've been in contact, so we are working on that.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for the update. I'm glad to hear you're getting some help in there.
So hopefully that'll lead to, in a couple of weeks, having a complete list of what all's active and not active.
Okay, so other business, approval of minutes.
So I sent a
We
bunch
had
out.
quite a few.
It was much smaller than last time.
No.
So,
We had
Good.
May 14th, 28th, 29th, and June 3rd.
yes. I did have a couple corrections that I caught too. On May the 14th, there's a representative that has highlighted in yellow. It's supposed to be Don Bracken. So we'll correct that. That's there. One of the reasons it would be really nice to approve these sooner than later. We don't read the newspaper. If there's any project that happens to be appealed in the next period of time, it's always nice to have minutes that have been reviewed and approved.
Yeah, no kidding. Just in
To go
case.
through. Just throwing it out there.
There
Not
was-
saying that that's the big driving factor, that I should stay more current with minutes, but
There was a question on the 29th that was in yellow.
yeah, there is the DEP letter that Mr. Glowacki quoted that has a date. I just need to insert that date. I just have to pull it out.
Was that I left the date blank or I had the wrong date?
No, it's just a question.
I had put the wrong date in, and then I corrected it, and then the one I put in, I forgot to save the correction. I just got to reinsert the correction.
Yeah, other than that, it looked good to me, and I agree. I think we should.
So do I have a motion to issue?
Just before we do that, Mr. Chairman, I can't quite find in here where the Mass DOT project and the bike path, where we approved that.
That's a good.
On the 14th, we did not.
No, we did it at one of the special meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had two things on
Am I missing a set
Well,
in here?
that's a
One of
good.
the SBPF town. special
Isn't
meetings.
this under the 28th? For Goose Pond Lane, number 3. I'm sorry, this is page 141. It's just at the very bottom of that. That might be. It says for Goose Pond Lane, no discussion, signature page for all commissioners to sign.
Yes, there's no vote there.
And was that the day that we voted? It sounds.
Unless, which date is that?
We did vote on it, yeah. And Jen, it was toward the end of the meeting because Jen had to leave. Is that the one you had to leave? So that's the vote that didn't get recorded there, right? Would that be the?
Is that what's going on, was there was?
Yeah, I think
The
that's.
vote just needs to be there on that day?
I think so. I think you're right, Mike.
What's the date on that?
The 28th of May? Was it just 2 weeks ago? Or is it before? No, Wednesday, May 28th. Is that the right date?
I thought it was the 29th. I thought it was the day we came back.
It was the special meeting.
It was a special meeting.
Was that the April
I
2nd
think
thing?
it's got to be the 9th. No, it
The
was
2nd?
in the past couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
Are we missing
The
a day?
28th was our official meeting,
So
and the
it would have been the
14th.
29th.
Tuesday the 3rd, didn't we come in? Yeah, Tuesday, June
Yeah.
3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So is that when it's supposed to?
Are we missing a set?
You weren't, no, you weren't doing them by unanimous consent at that meeting, were you?
No.
Oh, there's a special hearing that's dated Thursday the 29th,
That's, I think, when you did it.
but we met on the 3rd,
Well, if needs be.
so that
we
might be
can-
the wrong
We can
date.
carry these forward, and I can sort that
Mhm.
out.
You see what I'm saying? Oh, and there are Tuesday the 3rd minutes here. There are two sets
No, it
for the
happened in-
20.
It happened in May.
Yeah, okay, so it is the Thursday after the Wednesday. Yeah, so that's our second, yeah.
Which date are you on?
The 29th.
The 29th was we had the special SBPF one on May 29th and on
And we voted
June
the,
3rd. And so,
Yeah, we discussed SBPF on the 29th, and we voted on the 3rd, but I think on the bike path, we voted on the 29th.
You voted on the 29th. That did not come back.
okay, so it might be here.
No, it's not.
It's not in here.
It's not, so, okay, so we need to hold off on that one anyway.
Yeah.
So we could approve the 14th, 28th, and the 3rd.
Well, I'm not sure we can, because I can't.
I think I'd rather.
I think I'd
hold
rather,
off.
yeah.
But if there are any other corrections, we'll make those and I'll bring those back for
Okay.
our meeting in 2 weeks. With this set too, so. I just missed it in there.
Okay. Well, then we're going to hold off.
We're going to wait
That's
on
fine.
all that.
We'll do them toward that.
Mhm.
Okay, reports, CPC. Ian's not here, no, we don't have him.
Dave's not here, man.
Where you go?
NP and EDC.
We had a meeting, and turns out the Department of Transportation is asking the town to push their funding for the bike path, in-town bike path, forward another year because of concerns brought on by the Nantucket Historical Commission, NHC, and which I have a letter of interested in reading. So they're going to review the concerns, and so that's not going to happen right away.
Mosquito Control Committee.
They're doing surveillance, and they might already be testing. I think there's going to be an educational effort here soon to release some new information, but we haven't met yet. If Kara's still here, we do have a contract now for this year, but that's all been done via email.
Any other committee?
Done with the CMP. so-
Okay,
I do have the answer to that question, Jen, that's figured out. The date we're missing the minutes from May the 21st.
May the 21st.
Which was an SBPF special meeting,
Meeting.
and we did the bike path.
Which would then begin to make sense, because then we voted it that day, and that's why the next week it says signature page for everybody to sign.
Correct.
Yep.
We had time to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll just,
all right.
I couldn't imagine that I didn't record the
no. I must just missed it putting it in the packet or missed the day. That's all right.
Okay.
Okay, so commissioners' comments.
We're here, we get out here by 5 now.
Okay, Mr. Administrator.
Yep, just real quick, it's come up as a possibility, and I just wanted to get some feedback from you guys before I agree to do it. The WPI students are starting to scope projects again, and there's a group that is interested in essentially making an inventory through the Concom files and on the ground of coastal engineering structures on Nantucket.
Yep.
I'm going to kind of abuse that process and get them to also sort out monitoring and ongoing conditions and those things as part of that process.
That's great.
But just want to see if anyone had any thoughts, if they liked the idea, disliked the idea.
No, that would
I
be
like
great.
the idea a lot.
The information should go to Rob Young, who's got them for the country.
Yep. Well, we'll definitely get all that stuff put
Yeah,
together.
that's a great idea.
And as much information as they're willing to collect around those things, like beach impacts or anything they can kind of
I'll say,
judge would be
amazingly enough, the suggestion was from Mary Warrow. Suggested, so.
That's a great idea.
Excellent, yeah, it's a great idea.
You could make a large war game table with movable pieces, slide remnants and.
We should actually develop.
That
would be so much fun. That would be a great game. We should actually make that as a game. Yeah. I think there's some money to be made there.
Well, what's the name for it?
It's probably not something I can say on tape. Yeah.
We'll let the
Eventual
the
destruction,
content.
or, yeah. That's
a great idea, though.
Yeah, that's
That's supposed
excellent.
to be coming up.
Okay,
An
anything
idea, I
else,
think we're
Jeff?
gonna have them watch.
That's it for me.
Do pH in the harbor.
Be mindful of all of the endangered species fencing and restrictions. I'm telling you
Oh,
first.
Yeah. I have a question
Or I'll
for
come-
these guys about.
I'll come looking for you.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Okay,
That's
so,
5 after.
we're ready to close.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Good luck to all those who are looking for a reappointment too next week.
Oh, yeah. Is that
that's
when that
next
is
week.
next week?
So it's good luck, you get on or you get off.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, we're removing a lot of privet at the fuel station.
We won't
We're
hold it
trimming it,
against
cutting
anybody.
it.